Given the shortages in staff that you're seeing, where do you stand on this idea that if you work within the NHS, there is an expectation, it may have legal force, that you must have a vaccine?
Oof. I'm actually unvaccinated myself, so I'm set to lose my job in April. I'm very much opposed to any form of mandate for any medical intervention. I think it's a dangerous path to go down and sets a terrible precedent for the future. I'm not. Sorry, Colin, carry on.
No, Kate, I didn't realise you were going to say that. I had no idea before you appeared on our television screens that you weren't vaccinated and that was your position. How marginal is the position that you take within the hospital? What reaction do you get? How much pressure are you coming under from hospital managers, maybe even from patients, to get jabbed?
I've had no pressure from patients. My patients have actually been very supportive. I'm don't want to sound big-headed, but I'm widely regarded as a caring doctor that my patients love. So they've all been very supportive, but I have been under extreme pressure from hospital management. I've felt sort of bullied and harassed at times over the recent months about my choice. And it's a choice that I've made for myself, weighing up sort of risks and benefits to me from COVID and from the vaccine. And I mean, actually, for the first 12 months of the COVID epidemic, I worked on a COVID ward. I cared for COVID patients every day. I was highly exposed to COVID and didn't actually catch it. I didn't get ill. I didn't test positive. But I went into work every single day. I didn't have adequate PPE like most of my colleagues. My colleagues all became unwell with COVID and I remained well. So I made the decision not to get vaccinated because I didn't feel like I needed the vaccine. And although I'm not anti-vax, I think that this is a fantastic vaccine for those that are vulnerable to COVID. I would advise all of my elderly, frail patients to get it, and I think it's done wonders for reducing hospitalizations and deaths in the vulnerable. But I don't consider myself, I'm in my 30s, I'm fit and healthy. I don't consider myself to be in a vulnerable group, so I don't feel that I need the vaccine. So that's the reason that I didn't take it. And I do believe in the fundamental human right to bodily autonomy. I think it's incredibly important.
I do too, Kate.
Pillar of
I do too.
Medical
I do too, and a lot of our viewers agree with you. You know, we can be characterised as headbangers for saying that sometimes. I've been jabbed. I've had the booster, but I would go to the wall for the right of someone like you, and indeed the doctor I mentioned earlier, to stand apart from the crowd. You know the risks. You've seen it visibly, demonstrably, before your very eyes, on the wards. You know what you're talking about. You are not an ideologue on Twitter. You are somebody there in the wards. What will happen to you later this year?
As things stand, I will lose my career on the 1st of April, which it saddens and angers me that we've got to this point. I've been working towards this point in my career, for as long as I can remember. I wanted to be a doctor since I was about 5.
Kate, we taxpayers have put hundreds of thousands of pounds into helping you become a doctor. We've got a stake in you too.
Yes, you do.
And we don't want to lose you.
Well, no, and I don't want to be lost, but I think that I think that the science behind the mandate is flimsy at best, because it's widely known now that the vaccines don't actually stop transmission. So I'm not a great risk to my patients. I'm or no greater risk than a vaccinated member of staff. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
No, Kate, what I'm really curious about, I suppose, is this: it's absolutely revelatory to hear you say what you're saying, just as it was to hear the doctor, the anaesthetist, tell Sajid Javid last week that he had this contrary view. And I just wonder what people like you are saying discreetly to one another. Are you saying anything? Is it occasional discreet WhatsApp messages to somebody you're at med school with? Is it somebody who works on another ward? Are you keeping your heads down? I mean, if you are, I'm guessing you're pretty unusual. I mean, you're prepared to go to the wall on a point of principle, and you are going to lose your livelihood that you've striven for decades to arrive at this position. But on a point of principle, you're prepared to stand by that. But there must be lots of other people like you who share your view but don't share your bravery.
There are, I mean, I'm actually in contact with a lot of other NHS frontline staff that are in a similar position, and they're nervous. They're scared to stick their head above the parapet. It's not particularly fun being me at the moment, so I can totally understand that. But there are a lot of other staff that are out there, and actually, I mean, we're called anti-vaxxers and we're called vaccine hesitant, but none of the people I'm talking to are hesitant. They've made up their mind. They've made an individual choice. So actually, I think if this mandate goes ahead, which it looks as though it will, the NHS will be in a greater staffing crisis than it is now.
Well, Dr. Goodman suggests there she's come under pressure, what she describes as extreme pressure from NHS colleagues to get jabbed. That's a serious criticism, and it's one we put to the trust where she works. This afternoon they replied. Andy Beebe, the medical director for Gateshead Health NHS Foundation, said vaccination as a condition of employment will come into force on the 1st of April 2022. This means we will not be able to employ anyone who is not double vaccinated against COVID-19 in roles that have contact with patients and service users. We are supporting our staff, giving people every opportunity to discuss concerns and supporting them to make an informed decision. Ultimately, this is an individual choice.